Ketchikan City Council order, please call the roll.
Coos.
Here.
Harris.
Present.
Carlson. Here. Olson.
Here.
Severson.
Here.
West. Here. Zingy.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, everybody. That brings us down to public hearing. We'll go into public hearing on Resolution 142551, amending the 2014 General Government Annual Budget, Fire Department, for an additional $5,000. I think it's added to a $30,000 grant we already got. Is anybody here to speak to that tonight? Seeing none, we'll close out the public hearing. Brings us down to communications. The 7A5, is that a new replacement, or is
It is a revised motion this morning.
okay? Let's remember that. And that's it for communications. That brings us to persons to be heard. Katie Posey first, and I think KJ, are you going to speak for her?
I'm Katie tonight.
Hop up to the podium.
Bear with me.
We shall.
I'm representing Katie Posey. She's stopped me on the way in, said she wanted to make a comment, but she's not going to be able to be here. She's got something to get. And I said I would do it, so that's all as well. Name Katie Posey, address Post Office Box 23829, Ketchikan, Alaska. She asked only Webb to do this for her because even though I can't be present tonight, this 35% planning stage meeting is the perfect time to address some of my concerns. Thomas Basin is a high-use, multi-purpose area, and this promenade project will affect Thomas Basin. My name is Katie Posey. I have 3 children and live on Panic Island. I pay mortgage in Thomas Basin for my boat. I pay the city of Ketchikan to park my car in the Thomas Street parking lot. I use the southern or potlatch ramp 4 to 6 times a day. The potlatch ramp is 30 feet under code. This fact makes it steep and unsafe. The city and harbor are aware of the problem, yet it is not a priority. It is uncovered, which makes it worse in the winter, spring, and fall. Not only have I fallen while using the ramp, my children have fallen too. We have seen groceries, gear, and carts slide uncomfortably down the ramp. It's a safety issue, a hazard that must be addressed. We try to use the tides to our advantage. Everyone does. It is easier to do things at a high tide, obviously, but the fact of the matter remains life does not stop because it's low tide. We still have to get to school on time. We still have to carry groceries out of the boat. We all have gear to deal with no matter what the weather or the tide. I propose that the city of Ketchikan take a good look at Thomas Basin's south ramp and help the harbor with an appropriate landing pad for an 80-foot covered ramp. I suggest the south end of the promenade. This area can be designed to include an appropriate landing pad for such a ramp. If the council recommends to include this idea in the promenade project, the harbor could actually increase its viable slips by 10. This is the perfect opportunity to fix a prominent safety issue and increase harbor revenue. The Historical Society on the Waterfront Walking Tour project has seized the opportunity to get in 35% planning phase of this city project to make sure that this area is beautiful, to make sure visitors know how to navigate this area, and to make sure that plans for the future waterfront walkway are incorporated into this plan. That's all I'm doing here tonight with the help of my neighbor, making sure that our needs are heard and addressed at this phase of the plan. Do I want it beautiful? Sure I do. Safety is important. We have to completely rebuild this whole area. Why not incorporate a landing pad and an 80-foot ramp plan into the works too? It's called the big picture for a reason. 35% planning phase is the perfect time to assess, address, and provide solutions and conceptual plans for our needs and our problems. The big picture should include Thomas Basin Harbor that meets the needs of its residents and its guests. When I approached the harbor about using this area for potlatch ramp, they said yes, it's a great idea as long as the city was willing to expand the project to include another ramp. Oh, let's think. Here is a location with an extra 30 feet that could withstand the length of an 80-foot ramp. It has a larger parking area for high-density usage, a promenade capable of incorporating a substantial landing pad, and provide safe access to the south side of Thomas Basin, and would actually increase vessel storage. High use of the southern ramp equals a higher probability of accidents. I know the city has been covering the cost of the ramps. That's a harbor project. The harbor stated that earlier. I know the harbor doesn't. I know that the harbor doesn't have enough money for a landing pad or another ramp. Also, that was stated earlier. I also know, because I've been attending the meetings, this promenade project is already projected to be almost $1 million more than projected. This council meeting was proposed to try and discuss and decide building measures to keep costs down and how to stay on task to finish this project by May 2015. Not to discuss frustrations with the southern ramp. 2 more paragraphs. This is the time, though, if not now, when? After someone gets hurt, after we have installed the ramp, after we've built the promenade. Having the big picture includes safety if we cannot afford it now and plan for it now. We do not need both ramps right now. The north ramp will always be an underutilized expense in a low-use area. The north ramp can stay 50 feet for now. With the best quality 50-foot ramp we already own over there, upgrade the southern potlatch ramp in the high-use area with an appropriate 80-foot ramp. Piggyback this promenade project to include a ramp for Thomas Basin. I think the city council should appropriate the cost of another ramp and take this opportunity to use the engineer already underemployed to solve some of our high multi-use problems. Take the time at 35% stage to solve these problems, not rush the solutions to the falling down promenade. Incorporate solutions into the big picture for 2 ramps, a plan that will not only help our visitors navigate the area, but provide a safe, usable area for our residents to do business and lead their lives safely and with pride. Then make it beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, Katie Posey, resident of Pennock Island. That was hard.
Thank you, KJ. That brings us Kathleen.
Katie, do you want this?
I've got one.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Light. I'm the director of the Arts Council. I live at 410 Cedar Lower.
Go.
Let me turn my phone off. There we go. I'm handing out 3 things today. The first thing is an invitation to the gallery opening in May. It is Not Your Father's Workshop, Not Your Father's Wood Shop, excuse me. We have several artists in the gallery. They've already put up the exhibit. I hope that you all can make it. The opening is tomorrow from 5 to 8 during Celebration of the Sea. That's the second thing I gave you, Celebration of the Sea. Art Walk is happening this Friday from 5 to 8. We have quite a few businesses participating. There's lots of events happening, including the annual Blessing of the Fleet that we reinstated several years ago, and we're happy to partner with the Ministries of Ketchikan and the Alaska Fish House to keep that happening. The Char's Taste of Ketchikan is happening at the Visitors Bureau, and that is basically a benefit to raise funds for the Educational Fund Scholarship that Char does. Sea shanties, and then we are really thrilled to announce this last piece that I gave you, which is the Arts Council. We have developed an Art Walk app. And this app is incorporating the public art of Ketchikan with the art businesses that are open year-round and feature local artists. And this app will start at the monument that Dave Rubin built at the Rock. It'll go all through downtown and walk them through the galleries that feature the year-round artists and the public art. Then they will go out towards Berth 4, visit Twisted Tree out there, and then they're going to hop on a bus, go to the plaza, visit Starboard and the Point, then up to the library to see that fabulous public art, and finish up at the Totem Heritage Center. So we think we've developed a really fun art walk for people. The art walk is going to be year-round, so this is for us. People can use it, can have their families use it when they come to visit. This company, Stray Boots, is in all the big cities. If you go to the website and you look at it, you'll see, I think it is Chicago, Ketchikan, Las Vegas, London, and like that. So we called them up and said, you guys need to do an app for Ketchikan, and they said, that sounds like a really cool town, we will. And so we're really excited. They're using us as guinea pigs, their first nonprofit and their first small town. We've created the content. We are frantically trying to correct it. They just put it up yesterday, and we're taking the tour and correcting everything and getting it going. We will unveil it tomorrow at the Celebration of the Sea Art Walk, and I hope that you guys will absolutely take advantage of it and have your family and friends do that as well. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, Jay Rhodes.
Honorary Mayor and City Council members, my name is Jay Rhodes. I'm with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I reside at 401 South Tongass. I'm here tonight to speak briefly about 7A6. That's the transfer to relieve the non-represented employees some of the pain I'm sure they're experiencing with their portion of the health insurance. I'm not here to speak against it. I'm just here to make a few points. The people that I represent in negotiations, one of the things that's been done in the past is as their health insurance costs have increased, we've negotiated, they've made the decision to lower their portion of their health insurance costs by not taking as much of a wage increase. So it's what you see in their costs being, what they're paying is a result of that negotiation process. And the fact that they've been willing to take less of a raise and reduce what they're paying for health insurance. And I just wanted to bring that up. Any questions?
Any questions for Jay?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chris White, welcome back.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, City Manager, Council members, staff, citizens both here and listening at home. I want to thank you again for this structure that allows us to speak about what we're concerned about and to see actions actually occur based on our concerns. One thing I just want to clarify, I'm here representing myself. No business entity, no organization, no collection of businesses or anything like that. It's me, Chris Holt. And I also want to clarify, I saw it in print a couple of times, and there have been some comments that people called me about. My intent is not to try to get a crossing guard in a place that would benefit a business. That's the last thing that I want to see is a municipality dispersing funds to benefit an individual or an organization. This is not what I'm about. I don't think that's how government works or should work. So, not sure where that's coming from. Those are not my words. But I do really believe that we need to consider where we're placing crossing guards and where we're placing our traffic lights. Today, we got more people, we got more vehicles, we got bigger vehicles, we have fast-moving bigger vehicles. We have a lot more people visiting us, and we have a lot more people walking around town. The promenade is a wonderful addition that I enjoy myself. My wife and I walk on that every morning that we can do that. And so I really, really appreciate that. It's a good move. I also want to thank Kathleen Light and the Ketchikan Area Parks and Communities Council on developing that app. That's also going to produce more foot traffic, more commerce, which is really a good thing for everybody. I mean, if we all grow, if this community grows, it's better for everybody. I've been here since I was a little kid, 50 years, and I've seen a lot of change, a lot of growth. It's really awesome. Some of us have been here that long. And so I think we're headed in really good directions. Progressive thinking and creative thinking is really, really a good thing for us. But the purpose of my visit tonight is to seek a little bit of assurance, ask a few questions. My intent is not to step on anybody's toes. I understand how this works and should work. And so if somebody gets their feathers a little ruffled, that's not my intent at all. And I apologize in advance for that. So I'd like to know that when we're deciding where our traffic lights go and where our crossing guards go, that there are empirical evidences being observed, in other words, on the site at the moment, in real time, during high season, during slow season, by people who are qualified, or at least who reference people who are qualified to make decisions based on community development, on public safety, and on commerce in a highly tourist-driven economy, which is what we are. So my first question to that point is there a written policy in place to guide decision-making for placement of crossing guards? Question number one. I'll be happy to email you guys these things. We're getting ready for the celebration of the sea, and we're really busy making things and doing stuff, and I apologize in my anticipation for you. We all saved some trees tonight anyway. I'll email it to you if you're interested in that. Is there a written policy guiding that decision? I've seen the ports and harbor ordinances that state that there are some criteria that are taken into consideration, and we'll talk a little bit about that and how it pertains to this in a moment. But I have not found in my research a written policy about this. And then on that same note, subsequent question, how often is that policy reviewed and by whom? I want to thank Mr. Corcoran for preparing that informative memo regarding what the current policy states, and that memo states, quote, "The current policy is to station crossing guards at crosswalks where the number of pedestrians desiring to cross it is of such a high volume that vehicular traffic is often severely interrupted." On that memo, I have a couple questions. One, what is considered high volume of pedestrians? What is considered high volume of pedestrians? Two, what is considered severely interrupted traffic flow? How do we determine that? What criteria is taken into account? Are we looking at DOT clicks on the meter that show us traffic in an area? Are we looking at people trying to cross the street? I don't need an answer to this, but it's just a rhetorical question. Are we considering the input of someone who is an expert about traffic flow? Or how are these decisions being made? Also, according to Mr. Corcoran's memo, page 1, paragraph 5, under observations, states, quote, "Port personnel have continually monitored all downtown crosswalk locations during the past 5 years." So again, question number one on that note, were these observations conducted by personnel whose primary task it was to monitor traffic flow and pedestrian activity? Or was this an ad hoc, secondary, or even tertiary responsibility of those people who are on staff already? Like, in other words, tell me what you see. And so then again, how is that data collected and run through the lenses of expertise in order for us to have a good decision that's keeping everybody safe and allowing for free flow of competitive traffic? Competitive traffic is pedestrians and vehicles and the stray dog or whatever, everything that's involved in the street. Are we considering all of those things? Under additional information on page 2, paragraph 3, Mr. Corcoran's memo also iterates an action taken in 2009 to place a crossing guard at the south end of the tunnel for approximately a 3-week test. So I'd be interested in how that site was selected. And what were the criteria utilized in 2009 to warrant a discussion or warrant the action that, in fact, it was just a test and we don't need it there? You know the south end of the tunnel right here on Grandton front here. It's a hairpin corner. Everybody gets confused here about, when you come around the corner, I have the yield sign coming from the north. Does that mean that I stop for the guy across the street on Grant with the stop sign? And after he goes to have to wait for everybody else, the guy at the stop sign doesn't know that he has to who gets to go first, the guy who's on the right or the first person who gets there. We are very confused as drivers in this town. And so that's a very conflicting location. Add to that it's a hairpin corner. And we've all sailed around, the tunnel, headed downtown, and somebody's in the crosswalk, and we have to slam on the brakes. And so traffic flow, I'm really concerned about how traffic flow is considered in situations like this. I have some additional questions. According to Ports and Harbor data, how many people were observed attempting to cross the street in the areas monitored in the past 5 years? If we've been monitoring that for the past 5 years, we have some data on that, some usable information that we can say, 25 people tried to cross at this intersection, none at this intersection. This intersection experienced some high volume, but not of concern. What is the not of concern part? How do we get to that? Who's making that decision? And again, please don't misinterpret my intentions here. I do not want to, I'm not here to make people mad. I'm here to make it safe as possible. When I was a kid, growing up in Bear Valley, me and my brothers, we used to, in the wintertime, we would have fights in the street, inside the street, in the sand, in the snow berms, and we'd pretend to beat one of us up, whoever it was that lost the draw the straw that time. And the others would run off, and then the car would stop, and the concerned person would, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And that person had to say, "Do you know where your kids are tonight?" And then they'd run off. So that's, this is some of the things that I've always been concerned about is, I'm a voraciously advocated parent. I love my kids. I love safety. I want to make sure we're all good. I have other concerns that I'll just give you a brief overview of tonight before I leave, and things that I will be talking about in the future. But so anyway, that's where a little bit of why these things are so important to me. What times of day were those observations made? Were they made in the morning, first thing, with coffee in hand? Were they made during the peak hour? We should have some data on that. So it's my opinion, again, that when we're considering safety, we have to take every single precaution that we possibly can. Now, we can't take every precaution in the universe, but we can certainly look at some of our history and say, you know what, we had a fatality here in 2007, and there was a large vehicle involved, and it was near birth too. And as I recollect the story, the driver thought the pedestrian had cleared the blind spot, and that wasn't the case. Since then, or from that point on, we've added people on the dock to help ensure that movements of those big vehicles. I think we need to think about that kind of an action now too. In the memorandum also from Mr. Corcoran, page 1, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, under observations, it says, quote, besides pedestrian volume loads, a key difference between the crosswalks where we currently station crossing guards and those where we do not is the physical configurations. Manned crosswalks at Mill and Main and Front and Mission all traverse 3 lanes of traffic, vehicle traffic, plus a parking lane for a total of 4 lanes. We have exactly the same situation at the intersection of Berth 4 near for City Electric. I forget that little street there, what that is. Exact same situation. Big vehicles, lots of people, but we don't have a crossing guard. It's my understanding that sometime in the past there was funds for a traffic light in that area. There's some plans for a new bus stop and an off-road parking, or at least stopping point for that bus. And so if in the past there was a consideration of that need, I'd like to revisit that. Where are we with that? Are we moving in that direction? Another question in that same line would be, how much is a traffic light going to cost us? Mr. Corcoran gives us some numbers for crossing guards that are between $11,000 and $10,000. If we're talking about immediate costs out of general fund, or I understand Ports and Harbor funds don't go into general fund. I don't know where the money comes from for the crossing guard. You guys all know that. If it comes from the Ports and Harbor, if it comes from our general fund, you'll know that. But my point is, if we're gonna spend $100,000, $200,000, whatever it costs for a traffic light, maybe we might wanna consider $10,000 or $12,000 for a crossing guard. And then again, who's making the determination on where that should go? I'm not. I don't want to. I don't want that liability. But as a corporate body and as a city, we are kind of hanging out there. Again, as I mentioned last meeting, 500,000 people get off at 1 and 2. 500,000 people get off at 3 and 4. We don't have any service for 3 and 4. This town does not serve first 3 and 4 with crossing guards. Not you, not me, not Ports and Harbor. This town doesn't do that. So my question is, why not? Now, if crossing guards are not put in place to benefit companies or individuals, but yet we have all of them down here and none of them down here, there's a dichotomy in my mind here. I don't understand the reasoning, and so I need a little help in understanding that. I need your help in understanding that. If the purpose of our people isn't to, and this is a word that's been bandied about by a lot of impassioned people, so please don't change the focus of your lens just because I say it. If the purpose of crossing guards and staff is not to guide people to certain directions, and yet it is to keep people safe, then we've missed it there too. So I really want to suggest that we take a look at this again and look at the criteria. I'd be very interested to read the policy. I'm very interested as to when it was drafted, who drafted it, how often it's reviewed. Is it helping? I mean, that's the whole idea with review and evaluation is it doesn't work. And if not, let's modify this thing to make it work. Years are passing, more people are coming. We want to build, the pioneers in the state of Alaska went out there and built roads first. And then people followed. The Army built roads first, and people followed. We have an opportunity to build roads. And we have an opportunity to grow this town. And it's a very small cost and consideration, but when coupled with the safety factor, it's almost like you don't even have to think twice about it. So those are my concerns and my words. I hope you receive them as beneficial and progressive. And thank you again.
Krish, can you call the manager's office tomorrow and get the email so you can email your questions, and Carl can get back to you.
Sure.
So we can get some answers.
I'd be very happy to.
Thank you very much. There's nobody else on the list to speak to the council. Is anybody here that didn't get a chance to sign up? Dr. Rice.
I did sign back there,
Oh, wrong one.
I couldn't read it.
Yeah. My name is Peter Rice, and I live at 1395 Pond Reef Road. I'm here representing the Ketchikan Medical Center and myself, and I am here simply to ask for your support to fund this very small project of removing the alder trees behind the hospital, in particular the long-term care unit. And Cliff Allen has put together a proposal to do that, sort of a partnership with the city and the hospital, and then a Boy Scout troop, and essentially hiring a timber faller, tree surgeon, John, who some of you may know, to remove a big portion of the alder trees behind the long-term care unit, and then utilizing some volunteer work with the scout troop to haul brush, and then a win-win in terms of utilizing the alder for firewood, and hopefully making a little bit of money for the troop. But the issue with those alder trees, and he may show you some pictures or not, but the alder trees are really impinging on the hospital, the integrity of the building for years in terms of a constant shadow and raining alder leaves and debris, and the back of that building suffers greatly for that, as does the areas of the long-term care unit that have big
big skylights and a greenhouse thing for the residents. It's constantly, moss covered. Makes the landscaping difficult, and there is a patio back there for the residents, and it's just kind of a nasty place because of that. There are existing cedar trees, which are like 25 foot tall, and they will be retained, and they'll provide some degree of visual barrier between the hospital and Gateway. The hospital administration, as well as leadership in the long-term care unit, is very supportive of this. So I just ask for your support.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to address the council tonight? We'll move on. Seeing none, we'll move on to the agenda. That brings us down to consent agenda. I had a couple I was going to ask if you wanted to add, and that was unfinished business, general government number 1, amending the code there, which we've already, I believe, did in first reading. 7A1, the birth assignment. 7A3, the award of the asphalt bid, and then 7B1, the changeover at Beaver Falls. Anybody have any problems with those? Dick?
I'm okay with them. I just got a couple of comments on them before we vote.
Okay. All right. Matt?
Did we vote on the harbor thing last time, or did we bump it up to
Which one?
the
Oh, I think we
6
voted.
ordinance?
I can't remember.
I just want to make sure.
I think we did. We talked about it. Yeah, we voted on it the first time.
Yep, okay.
All right. Do we have a motion to consent?
Your Honor, I move to consent.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you read the items?
Your Honor,
Yes, Dick.
on one of those items there, I'm a member of the Redmond,
Uh-huh.
but I don't consider it a conflict. It's just a member.
I'm not going to count as a conflict.
Okay. So you want to talk about my comments before we vote?
Let her read the items
Okay.
first, and then we'll go.
Approval of minutes, regular meeting of April 17th, 2014. Resolution number 142551, amending the 2014 general government operating and capital budget, the fire department for $5,000. Revocable and limited permit to work on or encroach upon the platted right-of-way, 342 Main Street. Award of contract number 1420, Centennial Building and Totem Heritage Center janitorial services, I Even Do Windows. Removal of alder trees, Peace Health Long-Term Care Unit. Ordinance number 141755, amending the Ketchikan Municipal Code, utilization of and prohibited activities relating to the drive-down float and crane, providing for a fine for prohibited activities, second reading. Revisions to the 2014 cruise ship berth assignments. Award of contract number 1415, asphalt patcher bid, Aero Construction Supply Incorporated. Contract number 1404, change order number 1, Beaver Falls Unit number 1, Stator Rewind, Delta Electric Motors Incorporated.
Okay, Dick, did you want to say something?
Yeah, on item, what is it, 585, all the trees?
Yes.
I think that we need to make sure that if they're gonna cut these things, I'm not against it, they need to treat those stumps so that they don't sprout, or otherwise you're just gonna come back. So,
True.
my suggestion is treat them, and that, I'll leave that to the, okay, it is the EPA will let you, I don't know. The other comment was, kind of a question on the asphalt patcher. It's a little bit unclear to me, are we gonna buy this and then we're gonna use our people to treat or to fix the road? Or are they gonna fix the road? Or just what's the plan? And also how much use are we gonna get of this machine once we get it?
Cliff?
Cliff Allen, Public Works Director, City Engineer. It's a whole lot of questions.
I can start over.
First of all, to correct you, it's not an asphalt patch. This one's concrete.
That's right.
Does it say asphalt patch?
It says asphalt patcher bid.
Okay. It's a specialized, I'm sorry, it's a specialized product. The intent of this one is to deal with our concrete joints, particularly those you see on the hill up to the landfill. A lot of research went into this. Your answers on who is going to use it, I almost want to say all of the above. Because it's specialized, we're bringing, in this bid, it requires the supplier
and a crew to come up here and use it, make this thing work, and train our guys, our staff, in the process. Then we would maintain long-term ownership. We get a lot of material with it, and we have a lot of use for it. Virtually all of our concrete streets are facing the same condition, where we used to have concrete joints that were once a half an inch wide. They're now a half a foot wide. That's the landfill road, Park Avenue, the entrance to our hospital, the parking lot at the KPU building, Madison, Baranoff. We can go on and on. But we see many years of use out of this thing with our crews. Again, the way this is structured, if this thing doesn't work, we don't want to maintain it. We don't want to keep it if it doesn't work. It must prove its performance here in Ketchikan, in our climate.
Okay, so they're only coming up long enough to teach us how to use it and see if it works.
Yeah, there will be,
Okay,
training.
so
There will be, the initial testing. Kara, do you recall how long? 3 days. 3 days.
Okay, then my next question is in the budget item, there's 150 grand to fix that road. Does that mean we're going to have enough labor left? Our labor, whatever's left over, about 50,000, will be enough labor to, quote, run the machine and get the road fixed?
Yes. Now, depending on how long this goes, what other conflicts come up, for the street crew this summer, it may not all happen in 1 year.
Oh, well, that's your problem.
Thank you.
Anything else, Dick?
No, thank you, sir.
All right. Dan?
Could I just ask a quick question
bet.
on the alder trees?
Yes.
Is this a maintenance issue around the hospital, or is that, and are we responsible for maintenance of their facility? All of it?
Well, in a nutshell, we own the property and the facility. Tree maintenance is really not spelled out in the lease one way or another. And this piece of property, like almost every other piece of property on this island, if there are not conifers or pavement, there are or will be alders. So I would call it maintenance. We want to get rid of these, let the conifers take this area over.
So do we do maintenance on the parking lot and all the other items around the building as well? I mean,
Yes. It's shared. They do quite a bit of it. We typically come in and help on the what I'll call specialty work, patching a concrete joint. They do the plowing and the salting and the sanding. Other projects we've taken on would be some stairway repairs, putting in a new canopy, new treads, items like that. So typically, if there's a substantial expenditure, we'll do it. Maintenance, when it comes to knocking out 40 or 50 trees, that's a bit large for what I call maintenance. Maintenance would be changing the oil on the generators and replacing the filters, keeping things clean.
but we're not like painting the buildings or,
No.
Thanks, Cliff. All right. Call the roll.
Harris?
Aye.
Severson?
Yes.
West?
yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. That passes unanimously. That brings us down to unfinished business, appointment of boards and commissions. Do we have any objections to Mrs. Hawkins being on the Museum Advisory Board? Seeing none, we'll make her a member of the board. Brings us down to 7A2, Port of Ketchikan crossing guards. If somebody makes a motion, I'll make a speech, and we'll see what we do.
Your Honor,
You bet.
I move the City Council direct staff to take such action regarding the placement of Port of Ketchikan crossing guards in the Newtown area as determined appropriate by the City Council.
Second.
I made the push to put this on the agenda, and I thank Chris for coming, but, this started with me a couple businesses ago who were in retail. They were just trying to get their customers that they did on tours across the road, and they found a lot of issues with safety then, and that was the big push. I know not everybody be in favor of this, but I'd sure like us, in the area I'm talking about down there is at the old Marine Bar area, is to at least do a trial at that location to see how it would work. Do it for the first month of May and see what if it's helping with anything down there or not. I hate to just say no for the third time. I think this has come up before us. I know I remember it coming up, but I hate just to say no again. I'd like us to at least do a test, see what we think of it. Does it help? Does it hinder? and not just cast it away. Anybody else? Matt?
Your Honor, yeah, I agree with you about the marine bar location. As Chris was speaking, we've got this nice map across from here and with all the areas highlighted where we have crossing, and it seems, from my recollection in the summer, and just looking at this map here, the most logical place is to put it right where the promenade just comes off of Berth 4 there and approaches Water Street. I don't recall seeing a whole bunch of pedestrians trying to cross by First City Electric at that point. But we also, when we talk about the number of passengers, Berth 3 doesn't empty into this area. And I think we need to remember that we only have 250,000. But that's a lot of people. But I'm in terms of safety, we're not talking about 500,000 because most of the people that come off of Berth 3 head towards our downtown, head into buses, and they're taken away. Whereas the pedestrians from Berth 4, their first glimpse of the Newtown area is right where the promenade comes in on City Float there. So,
Your Honor?
You bet, Bob.
I believe there's a lot of bus traffic coming off of Berth 4. A lot of people come off the ships and jump right on it, so that's even a reduced number than we're talking about now. I don't know if we have any opportunities to put in cameras that do counts or something like that. But in that particular area, it might be one of those things, and Tiff would probably have to correct me on this, but it's a state highway, and they would have to put up the flashing signs. So if somebody wanted to cross there, they'd push the button and they'd flash, and it would at least warn the traffic that somebody's going to try to cross there. And it could be unmanned at that point, and it would act year-round in that capacity. But I know crosswalks, there's a standard for where you put them in. It's, 100 people crossing in a particular hour or something like that, or a particular need for that. And I know there's all kinds of traffic statutes that will tell you why, when, and where you would put one of those in, and the hazards of when you do put them in. So I think that we pretty well follow those. And again, it's a state highway. We couldn't put a crosswalk on there without their okay and a traffic study anyway.
Dick?
Yeah, some observations from having spent about 4 or 5 years down there. Probably 80% of the people come off that ship on Berth 4, get on a bus and leave. The rest of them go down the walkway. Very few of them, from what I've observed, cross there at First City Electric. There's a few, but there's not many. A few more will pick up and cross where we're talking about at the old marine bar down there, but I guess I haven't noticed that it's that much of an issue. The drivers are pretty doggone good people, and they will stop. The place where you get most, and 3 doesn't affect anything until you get on the south side of the tunnel here. And that would be, if we wanted to have one, that's the place to put it, but I wouldn't push it, because I don't think that it's significant. Most people go right on down or you want to call it the walkway, and they're headed somewhere down there, and then when you get to the visitor center, then they start, it's mass movement there, and there's a crossing guard. It's mass movement over there at Mill and Main, and so those are the best places. I guess with that, that's just been my observations for the last few years. But if we want to put a crossing guard in, the one thing I don't want to do is I won't spend no more money, because I think there's enough people down there working now that they can do the job with the number of people.
Is there 4 people interested in testing a crossing guard for May down there? 1, 2, 3. It dies. All right. If anybody else has anything else they want to bring up on it? All right. That brings us down to item number. Go ahead.
I think that we should still kick it back to staff, and Steve has done a couple of different projects, and if he sees something during his work down this year that maybe he wants to do that, I think we can leave that up to staff.
Okay. And Carl, you'll get the questions from Mr. White.
Can you do that, Mr. Mayor?
All right, that brings us down to item 7A4, 60% design development contract, 1321 design services for phase 4 of the berth 1 and 2 replacement project, P&D Engineering. Do we have a motion?
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
I move the city council authorize 65% design development under contract number 31-21 design services phase 4 of the berth 1 and 2 replacement project between the city of Ketchikan and P&D Engineering, Inc., based on such design elements of the project as detailed in the Port and Harbor Director's report dated April 22nd, 2014.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Bob?
I guess if Steve wants to speak to it, we've been talking about this for a while, and we're just moving it to the next step. Of course, we have some big things down there with the 80-foot pavilion and some things like that. So, Steve, do you have just an overview of what you see going on?
Yes, sir. Port and Harbors Director Steve Corporon. The biggest item that we anticipate being in Phase 4 is what Councilmember Stevenson just mentioned, the approximately 80-foot by 26-foot pavilion at the base of berth 1. It sounds bigger than it is. It's really not much bigger than the long skinny one you see down at berth 4 alongside the transfer bridge there. Not the big one that uses the trusses from the old waterfront warehouse. But the one that's there at berth 4, the long skinny one, is 96 by 22. So this one's actually shorter, but 4 feet wider. So it's not as big as it sounds. But that's the main thing we're looking at. And there was general consensus during the design review meeting that we held that we were on the right track, that it's got a lot of wood cladding to it, a green roof, some skylights. The one thing we're going to look at is the southeast corner, maybe boxing that in a little bit more with some more glass, just to give that corner a little more shelter in the summer. We don't want to close it up too much because then it will be very, very attractive to people we don't want in there after hours.
Yeah, Bob.
Yes, sir.
What was the original intent to put in a pavilion there? I see there's some notes here about maybe moving tour operators into that particular facility. And
That wasn't the original intent, but I see an opportunity there to try to make a better impression for people when they come off the ships. The original intent was to give an area close to where they're disembarking and reboarding, especially on rainy days. If this went in, Cruise Line says that they would get rid of their 3 little former walkways that they got from Miami that have the blue covers on them, which are basically so people don't have to get too wet while they're standing in line to get back on the ship. So more than if we queue up here, which is what they do kind of at berth 3 by the restrooms there, and at berth 4 with the shelter there, and at berth 2 alongside the KVB. You know, it gives them a chance to maybe not stand in line the whole time it's raining, or be raining on the whole time they're standing in line.
yeah, my concern is if we move the tour operators in there, it's going to congest that area as far as traffic flow and people and other things. So.
Yeah, that's something we're looking at, possibly recommending to you in this upcoming off-season. What it would do, it would remove them from right there in the flow of traffic coming right off of the gangways and just pushing back against that back wall. It's something I'm probably going to recommend to you. I just wanted to let you know that we talked about it at this meeting. If we did that, the consensus was we would maybe build them some newer tour booths that would complement this building as opposed to sticking the ugly ones that nobody has ever liked under there.
Thank you, Steve. Dick?
Yeah, I said on the meetings that we had on this, and I think that probably what's going on is a pretty good idea. The only comment I've really got is the talks about cantilever-style bus shelters. And those things over there aren't going to protect nothing if we just put on 3 of them. The wind's going to blow right through there, and you're going to be wet because it don't come down straight in town.
The only one we're talking about now is for the berth 2 borough bus stop on this side of the Port Security Building.
I still don't think it give anybody any protection. That's
It'll be
my
facing
problem.
the correct direction. These are facing the wrong direction because that's the only way they could face with the sidewalk. At berth 2, it'll be facing the correct direction. We really don't want to put any sides on them though because the sidewalk's only 8 foot wide right there. So if you put even a 4-foot side on it, you're going to restrict your sidewalk down to 4 feet.
Yeah, well, I mean, see, right now, I don't think they're gonna serve a purpose unless the rain's coming straight down. and I don't know what the purpose, I know it'd be nice to have a bus stop down there, and if you put it around the corner in front of the Christmas store, it's gonna get some protection, so it might be better.
We're talking two different bus stops here.
Two different,
The
oh, that's right, you're talking about the one right
Cantilever bus
here.
stop would be the one right in front of the Port Security Building here. For the Borough
Yeah.
bus stop, we carved out a front street.
Yeah,
We've run it a couple years now with no cover, saying that we would come back in phase 4 and put a cover there. We wanted to cantilever it so we don't restrict that. It's 8 foot there. The sidewalk next down to 8
Yeah.
foot because of the bus stop.
I still don't think there's any protection on those ones we just see right over here.
It'll give them some protection because it'll be facing the correct direction. But
They're up in the air at 10 feet.
right, if you don't want to do it, we don't have to do it. It's
Well, let's
just-
see how these out here work.
Okay, any other
And
questions?
our intent on that, some of the stuff we can put as additive bid items. We make it,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Our intent is to spend out the grant, so that we don't leave anything that we have to turn back to the state. So we can pick items off the bid list until we spend out.
Oh, we can do that.
The other bus stop you referred to, that was the one thing that, it's a standard, more four-poster one that
Yeah,
would provide
okay.
more shelter.
Yeah.
However, Borough Transit and Historic Ketchikan don't want that bus stop there. They'd rather see it moved around onto Spruce Mill Way in front of Christmas in Alaska, which means it wouldn't really need a bus stop because people could stand back against the building.
It's the building, yeah.
That's out of my area
Okay.
of control. So that's a very simple structure. It's basically already been designed up into the 30%. We wouldn't plan on doing anything more with it other than maybe having it as an added bid item so that if we wanted to have it constructed, or we could have it constructed in the future.
So is the borough proposing sides on the one down there at the end of Front Street?
They wanted one that was more like that, but now, that was at the conceptual design phase. Now we've gotten a 30% design, and what they said was, we don't want it at all.
Okay.
We would rather move the bus stop around the corner, out of my area of control, which is fine with me.
Okay, okay.
But I would see that coming back as a separate item for you guys, because it's on a street, not the port, and it would take out probably 4 parking spots there.
Yeah,
So,
if the bus stop's there.
if the bus stop goes there.
Okay.
So, but that simple structure is basically already designed through the 30%. We can just include it in the design. We don't have to award that either.
Yeah.
The one thing I would like to see if there's consensus on, the original plan was to put a cedar screening fence all the way around the electrical switchgear cabinets and the transformers at the north end of the Ketchikan Visitors Bureau. What Historic Ketchikan has proposed, and there should be a photo in your agenda item, is instead of putting the historical photos on the screening fence there, which would, because the switchgear has to have 36 inches of clearance there, would expand the footprint, what's going to be enclosed. They propose putting historical photo applications right on the switchgear cabinets themselves, which I actually think is a good idea. It would visually help. I checked with the electricians and KPU. There's no problem with that. We just need to make sure that the labels that are there are still clearly visible and say what's in that switchgear cabinets. On the street side where the transformers are, KPU and electricians both say that yes, you could do that as well, put those directly on the transformer cabinets. They would prefer that those do get screened and put the historical photo appliques on a cedar screening fence. They're shorter, and the screening fence there would go right up against it because it has to open up all the way if they actually get into those cabinets anyway. So on that side, it wouldn't increase the footprint beyond what's already there. And the required information on those cabinets is a little more expansive than the required information on the switchgear cabinets, and a little more important too, because that's high voltage stuff. So I would recommend compromising, no screening fence on the back side with the switchgear cabinets, but a screening fence on the street side, so that they don't put them all over the transformer cabinets. And if you guys agree with that, that's the way we'll head towards on the 60% design.
Any objection? Seeing
Makes
none.
sense.
And we've also talked about, if this works out well, we have other switchgear cabinets in that, right here at Berth 3. We have hot boxes, the huge one down at Spruce Mill Way and Main Street. We'll work with museums and Historic Ketchikan. Maybe we can start getting some historical photo appliques to kind of start dressing those things up as well.
Thank you. Don't go away, and we'll vote on this one, and we'll get the next one.
Yes, sir.
All right, anybody else on this one? Call the roll.
West,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Coos,
Yes.
Harris,
Aye.
Severson.
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-0, brings us down to 785, 35% design development, authorizing 65% design development contract, 1337 Thomas Basin Seawall Design, P&D Engineers. Do we have a motion?
Here, Your Honor.
I forget
Go
we
ahead.
have a replacement.
We have.
Oh, yeah, make sure we get that.
I think I got it. It may not read just that way. Yeah.
Excuse me.
I move the city council approve 35% design development prepared under contract number 1337 Thomas Basin Seawall Design between the city of Ketchikan and P&D Engineers Incorporated, incorporating additional design elements numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. As detailed in the Assistant Public Works Director's report dated April 30, 2014, and as may be modified by the City Council and authorize 65% design development under the contract based upon such design elements of the project as detailed in the Assistant Public Works Director report and may be modified by the City Council.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Dick, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, and if you'll notice, I made one change in there, and I'm gonna ask Seth to come up and explain what's going on here, but, under number 1, if you look at the second page, it says all pedestrian walking services will be wood, and I guess my only comment there is how we put the wood underneath the toilets in the current bus shelter down there, because we don't, it's gotta be concrete under them, but if you put a wood veneer on it, that may be fine, so I don't know what the plan is. You can answer.
Sure. Good evening. Seth Brackey, Assistant Public Works Director, council members, mayor. The item number 1, walking surfaces to be wood. The area directly underneath the loo will be concrete the way it is now. It slopes over to a trench drain so that it can be washed out. But then, like it is today, there'll be wood just around it. This area underneath the bus stop and the loo will actually be within the dirt portion of the project. So there'll be timber stringers and a timber deck. We do have to add some concrete underneath to control the drainage, so it slopes down, doesn't create kind of a pool under there, but it's certainly doable.
Okay, then, the second item's explanatory, it was all the driving surfaces will be concrete. The third one's the one I put in, other than what was in the original motion, and I'm gonna ask Seth to explain it, but basically it saves us about $500,000 if we go this way, so.
Correct. So the rock armored slope option is kind of a real, it's a big, you have to balance 50-50. So there's a significant cost savings. It's about $561,000 to go with the rock armored slope in lieu of a sheet pile wall. The wild card there is really the Army Corps permitting. We changed from an easy nationwide permit to an actual in-depth Army Corps fill permit. So we're concerned that may affect the schedule. In addition to that, with the rock slope, just picture we'll be adding rock at an angle out there, so you're actually adding additional weight onto the seafloor in that area. So what our geotech boring showed was there's basically harbor muck, and you could see settlement because of that weight. So it's maybe not as good as the sheet pile wall. The sheet pile will be driven down to rock, so there's no opportunity for it to sink. So that's something that has to be taken into account.
Okay, and then the other one, Lou, that I did is I dropped, well, let's see, I dropped one of them out, pedestrian lighting number 5. I don't know why we need lighting down there. Most of the time that we're gonna be down there is gonna be, in the summer, it's already daylight, so, and I don't know what it costs to run.
I believe Mr. Brock can speak to the issue.
Councilmember Coos, right now we have 7 luminaires in the project as it is, and this comment is really to just ensure that those luminaires fit the pedestrian scale of the other areas of the promenade. So that item is not a additional cost. It's really just making sure we conform to the look and feel of the other areas. So I would recommend considering leaving that
Leaving
one.
5 in. Okay.
Deanne?
I just had a question about that, the sheeting versus the rock. I mean, I just feel like everything shifts eventually here. Is it really wise? I mean, are we just saving money now that we're gonna end up spending later to shore it back up or do repairs on things that have been damaged because something has shifted? I guess I'm just trying to figure that out.
Well, certainly, if we do choose the rock armored slope option tonight, there will be an additional slope stability analysis done by P&D to make sure it's not a major concern.
And what is the cost for that?
So that's included in the design right now. I made sure to clarify that with P&D.
That test, that
Right.
additional test.
But if they do find that they're concerned about settlement there, then we will be back with.
Okay, so they're going to do some more investigation as to whether that's actually feasible.
Correct.
Okay, I'll feel better about that.
Okay, Bob?
So in the 65% design that we're going to here, or whatever we're moving up to, will you, I mean, I guess we should give you the option of which one's actually gonna work. I mean, if you get halfway through the rock slope thing and you say, hey, we're not getting permits or the slope stability doesn't pencil, then I think that you should have the advantage to continue on with the sheet pile wall. And that would make sense to me.
I would agree.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, so I just wanna make sure that you can go down both lanes depending on which one works and which one doesn't. I happened to attend that meeting and, it was a good meeting. One of the things that I caution the, audience is we need to keep it within the scope of the project that we have before us. We were venturing down Thomas Street, we were doing all kinds of other things that would have been, in the future, that may be a fine option to do, but I'm hoping that we don't add an exorbitant amount of cost to this thing by expanding the project outside of its scope. It's like dealing with the ramp in front of the potlatch. That's really outside of the scope of this particular project. We have a failed infrastructure piece that we're trying to put back, and we'll deal with the rest of that stuff. Now, there will be an ADA ramp put in this particular project, so then it becomes a matter of choice if you want to walk down and use that ramp or use the one at potlatch. So
All right,
that's fine.
Dan and Matt.
I do just want to say that it's always beneficial to get those other comments, and that, certainly as things progress, taking those things into consideration when more work is being planned or designed and thought out and stuff. I think it's just going to be a win-win for everyone at that point. I just don't want people to be discouraged thinking that they've come to this public meeting to give their time and thoughts on something, and valid thoughts, but it's like Mr. Severson pointed out, there's only a limited scope of work here that we can concentrate on at this time. But that doesn't negate their concerns and thoughts and stuff on different ways to make the area more improved overall.
Matt?
Yes, Seth, don't we have the rock armored slope now? Isn't that what we're dealing with the failure?
Right now, it's more of a rock wall issue. So it's a vertical wall that's failing. This would be out at a 1.5 to 1 slope. So I'm sorry, a 2 to 1 slope. So for every 2 feet you go out, you only go down 1. So that's going to be a lot more stable.
So how many dock space, boat spaces would we lose with that?
This fill will extend into an area that houses skiff slips, and maybe Harbor Master Corporon Ports and Harbors Director Corporon can address that.
I know we removed a few with moving it, but would we lose more if we
Yes,
went with
Port
this?
and Harbors Director Steve Corporon. Surprisingly, actually, we're the harbor staff and I were the ones that recommended looking at this alternative, even though we would lose a few of the skiff stalls back there. There's really not a demand for those stalls back there. The maneuvering is tough to get back there to begin with. We would gain some of them back in side tie, and which would be better for the maneuverability back there. One of my recommendations was that because the harbor would be giving up some operational and revenue stalls, that would they consider the Stedman ramp that's going to be replaced in this. The initial discussions I had with the manager was that the harbors would chip in for that ramp then, and we would pay for that gangway. Maybe since we're giving this up, that the CPV funding part of this would pay for that, and we possibly, if the harbors did want to pay for a gangway, we could replace the Potlatch gangway at the eastern end of the Thomas Street connection with this part of the promenade. A lot of the harbor users were upset because our original priority to replace ramps in Thomas Basin was the Potlatch one first. They're both 50-foot ramps, but that's the one that's more heavily used by the harbor users. So we took some heat on this, but I explained to them that, as currently proposed, this is the best way for the harbor to get a ramp down there at a cost they could afford. Backing back from that one step, what I did talk with P&D and Seth with the other night, at a minimum, we should make sure that the eastern end of the promenade replacement, the pile placement and the structural elements are put in so that it could accept the replacement gangway in the future, going down towards, and take out the Potlatch ramp at that time. Be nice to do them both right now. It really would. And if you agree that maybe the CPV funding could take care of the Stedman Street ramp, I think the harbors could afford the Potlatch ramp if we wanted to do it, or do it as an additive bid item. But at a minimum, I think we should at least make sure structurally it won't cost any more, just to make sure the elements are in the right spot to accept that ramp in the future.
Mr. Mayor, I don't disagree with what Mr. Corporon is saying. I think it's premature to start trying to determine what funding sources are going to do what components at this part. We're not even sure whether it's going to be the rock or the sheet pile wall. Those issues can be addressed a little bit down the road. I think we need to concentrate on the design. I agree getting the components in place would be a smart move at this point.
Just so you understood where she was coming from in her statement tonight. That she,
I wanted you to address
that's where she was, coming from.
All I was going to say, Lou, is it sounds like we need to leave number 5 in.
Okay, we'll leave number 5 in.
I had a question on number 5.
Go ahead.
So we've got 7 lights in there. They're proposing putting more in, correct?
No, it's simply to make the lighting that's in the project now pedestrian scale where it's along the walkway. So my nomenclature there probably wasn't the greatest. Add pedestrian scale lighting. It's really just make the lighting that's there pedestrian fit with the rest of the promenade.
All right, call the roll.
Your Honor, just to clarify, the design elements then are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? Okay.
Just 3.
3 is the armored slope. So, I guess I need clarification. We are saying we want them to do the study on the armored slope, and if it is able to do that, instead do that. Otherwise, go with the sheet pile.
Understood.
I'm just
Everybody
making sure
understand?
I
Okay.
know what we're voting on.
Call the roll.
Severson?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
Harris?
Okay.
Olson?
Yeah.
West? Yes. Carlson?
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-0. That brings us down to 7A6. Councilmember Judy wasn't able to be here. She was asking if we could defer this until she got back. Do we have a motion to defer?
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
move to defer.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the roll.
Actually, there's really no motion on the floor if you just want to put it off to the next
Okay,
meeting.
we'll put it off to the next meeting. That brings us down to 7A7, classification and compensation plan date. I think we have another councilman who wanted to do something, Mr. Coos.
Yeah, Your Honor, I was gonna plan, if we put it on the table, I was gonna defer it, because I think we need to talk about the two of them together. They're both money added together. And
Is
we
it-
need to defer it and put the two of them together.
Anybody have a problem with that? Okay, we'll do that. Thank you, Dick.
And I don't know when we wanna pick a date for them to defer, because the manager may wanna be here when we deal with them, and so it puts them a month out or a month and a half out.
Carl, you gonna be at the next meeting?
No, sir.
What meeting are you gonna be at next?
The second meeting in June.
Okay, let's switch them to June, second meeting. All right, that brings us down to 7A8, Resolution 142550, issuance of general obligation bond not to exceed 3 million improvements to harbor facilities. Do we have a motion?
Hey, Your Honor?
Yeah, go ahead.
I move the city council approve resolution number 142550, authorizing the issuance of general obligation bond of the city in the principal amount of not to exceed $3 million to finance the cost of certain improvements to the harbor facilities of the city as authorized under ordinance number 121697 and ratified by the city voters at a special election held on June 26, 2012. Authorize tax levies to pay the principal thereof and interest thereof, or thereon. Authorize sale of the bond to the Alaska Municipal Bond Bank on the terms and conditions provided in this resolution to establish an effective date.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Dick?
Yeah, well, this
Anything?
right here, bond, and I think it's in conjunction with the harbor master or Steve and Bob can confirm it, along with some grant money.
Correct.
We'll do floats 1 in and number 9.
And that's predicated on the council enacting the second of the two 7% increases this summer to go into effect September.
So we already did a first one. This is gonna be a second one?
That's what the plan is predicated on.
I had some people that wanted to.
Mr. Mayor, how much is the grant that we're gonna get to go with it?
The balance left on the grant is about $2.3 million. The total project cost is $5.3 million coming from the bond issue, and $2.3 coming from the grant.
All right. Anybody else? Call the roll.
Coos?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
Severson?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us down to 7A9, Resolution 142549, issuance of the general obligations bond not to exceed 43 million, Ketchikan Medical Center. Do we have a motion?
Your Honor,
You bet.
move city council approve resolution number 14-2549, authorizing the issuance of the general obligation bond to the city in the principal amount not to exceed 43 million to finance the portion of the costs of capital improvements to the Ketchikan Medical Center as authorized in ordinance number 13-1726 and ratified by the city voters at the election held on October 1st, 2013. Authorize tax levies to pay for the principal thereof and interest thereon. Authorize the sales of the bonds to the Alaska Municipal Bond Bank on the terms and conditions provided in this resolution and establish an effective date.
Second.
Moved in second. Anyone add anything, Bob?
Nope.
I had a question.
Yeah, and then KJ.
I sure hope it's enough.
Me too. KJ?
Carl, will you explain to us, because I can see it right here, but everybody over there can't, how much this bond is gonna cost us, like yearly?
Bob, I'll defer to the finance director.
Because I see one of these numbers at 2.6 million a year.
How much it's gonna cost us?
Yeah, roughly.
$80 million, including paying the principal and the interest over 30 years.
Well, my question gets down to, so according to this, it's talking like 2018, we'll be paying 2.6 million a year or something like that.
Correct, yeah.
Where do we get the money for that?
But the good news here is in 2018, the 1997 hospital bonds will have matured. Right now, the debt service on that's about $900,000. So that money will be applied to help pay the 2.6 million.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, call the roll.
Carlson?
No.
Harris?
Okay.
Olson?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Coos?
Yep.
Severson?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 5-1, brings us down to vouchers. Daily News, 6,200. Do we have a motion?
Your Honor,
And
I move for approval of vouchers to the Ketchikan Daily News in the amount of $6,221.79.
Second.
moved and seconded, call the roll.
Harris?
Aye.
Severson?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to manager's report. Carl, do you have anything to add?
I have two, Mr. Mayor. If I could, I'd like to ask the electric division manager to come up to the podium. We had the Cooperative Relations Committee meeting last Friday, and Andy gave a brief update as to the status of Woodland Lake. Councilmember Coos requested that he make a similar presentation to the council this evening.
Take it away.
Thank you and good evening. Andy Donato, Electric Division Manager. So we had a couple of different reports here that we've been putting out, and so we decided for the Cooperative Relations Committee put out a what Carl here called a fact sheet, and basically summarizes all the activity in bullet points just on one sheet, right? Because the other reports are getting pretty cumbersome. And so if you don't mind, I'll take you through this. If there's something of interest, we can dive a little deeper, but I'll scan through this if it's all right.
Please.
So we start here at the dam. So we have the valve house and piping complete. Now you realize there's two penetrations through the dam, and there's a higher water intake and a low water intake, or deep water intake, and the pipes go through the dam and into this valve house, and so these are the valves that throttle that, and so you can combine water for a certain temperature, right? Because seasonally they change in terms of profile. So that's done mechanically. We don't have the actuators completely wired to the distribution panel yet, so that's out about a week. And then at the dam, there are some seams from casting back in 1925, and some of those have some small leaks, and so those are being fixed with some high pressure grout, and again 50% complete there. Work was delayed by some heavy rains in the past several weeks. The rains also brought some log jams, and those were removed here last week. The lake is spilling right now as we speak. So we move over to the new work, which is the second phase of the project, Achilles Diversion. So there's an old bridge that was bought by the Forestry Service, and we have that in place to cross the creek, and that road is all complete right to the site where we're going to build the diversion dam. So many of you folks are familiar with Granite Basin here, and so this will be very similar to the Granite Basin dam or dam structure. So we have a design already in place. That's gone through some preliminary FERC approvals. I'm still on the hook to give them a final approval. The head of the Achilles Creek has been diverted with a bunch of super sacks, a berm, and some coffer dams. So if we went out there today, you'd see they've got the whole creek diverted, and so that they can drill holes in the creek bed and along the walls. So they're drilling right now some 30-foot holes to put some 40-foot rock bolts in. And these will be grouted in, and the concrete set on that and then tightened up. The interconnecting pipe from that area to the #1 penstock is still out a ways. So if we move to the substation,
Andy?
Yes.
On Achilles, there's a tremendous amount of timber along that right of way. Is that something Cape U owns, or is that something somebody else is going to do something with?
That's something I think the Forestry Service owns.
Oh, okay.
I think they've inventoried that, and I got my name on a couple of those logs. But no, I think the Forestry Service owns those, so I don't think we are disposed to move those just yet.
A quick question, but they are gonna salvage them, they're not gonna leave them laying there and rot.
Gosh, I hope not. They'll have a
I
high
do
vapor
too.
pressure if they do.
Yeah.
Let's see, we go down to the substation. The substation's half energized. We have a barricade across it so they can continue to do transformer work. But the part that's energized keeps the station transformer energized, and so therefore we got lighting and heat and the crane in the building. Moving now into the powerhouse, we have virtually everything is in there, and if you get in there, you'll see it is packed. So both generator and turbine assemblies have been set and grouted in place. Final alignments are done on both units, and now here we have some small problems. So unit 1 I have listed here as a mechanical hold, so it turns out the very last item in putting this thing together is sticking the turbine runner onto the shaft. And lo and behold, the taper bored into the runner doesn't match the taper on the shaft. So millwrights have accurately mapped this with bluing, taken this issue to the supplier HEEW, and they realize that they manufactured this on a dummy shaft and not the shaft that shipped to the U.S. So to that end, we've found the right people. They'll come here. We have to get Bert to give them some visas. That took a little while. So we're going to have a meeting here on the 7th. Actually, today I was told it got bumped up to the 6th. So we'll have a review of that fit up, hopefully a resolution, and then that can move forward. Most likely it'll have to go to a shop. The runner will get welded in the inside and rebored to fit the shaft. Just so that you know, we did bring the shipyard into this to get their professional opinion. Turns out that this is very typical amongst mounting large propellers on shafts. So they said this is really not a big issue. They see this all the time. There's interference fits, and they mount these by hand and then realize that that's not where they want it. They put the tightening bolt on it, tighten it to 30,000 pounds of torque, draws that propeller in. Altogether different position. They pull it off, map it with bluing, and it's an iterative process with grinding and lapping to get it to fit where they want. So, at any rate, I'm sure it'll be something on this order with this particular wheel. Unit 2 has a mechanical hold on it, but I noticed today they're out there grinding away on it, so this would be catch can mechanical. It turns out the discharge piping didn't line up with a discharge pipe that came through the concrete wall. They were slightly skewed, and so they're matching those up. So that'll move forward. Other than that, turbine stop valves are in place. If you know about turbine stop valves, there's a huge cantilever weight on them, and there's hydraulic fluid that keeps them open. And so if there's a power outage, the hydraulic pump releases, and then the weight of the arm forces the valve closed. So it's a fail-safe device. Very important to have these. So both of those are in. The switchgear is in. Motor control centers are in. Right now they're doing point-to-point wiring. The exciter systems are actually being wired now, so I can update this. And so with all that said, I've tried to forecast the initial mechanical spin date. I thought it was going to be at the end of this month. These two mechanical holds here forced me to think we're going to push that out to late June. So that's where we're at. As far as financials, I looked seriously at the three contracts we have. We have two contracts with Burke, one with Dawson, and there's plenty of monies within those. The fourth contract actually with Hatch is the one that's a little bit light. To give you an idea here, in the heat of what they're doing, they burn through about $20,000 a week. There's a little over $200,000 left. So I've warned them all, they got about 2 months worth of burn time, so we got to finish this thing up. So if all goes well and we bring it in to the dates we propose here, it should come together.
Great, thank you.
So if the delays due to the manufacturing, those costs, are they borne by the manufacturer, or is that something borne by us?
No, by the manufacturer.
And that does that also, because we'll have inspectors on site waiting for that stuff to come together, and we may, their contract's gonna be longer also, correct?
Yes.
The other thing I would add that Andy didn't touch on is we are continuing discussions with SEPA relative to the true up. I think we're fairly close. Hopefully we'll have something for you shortly.
Excellent. Dick?
Yeah, Andy, what's Hatch still doing for us at 20 grand a week? That's a lot of people.
That is a lot of people or a lot of time. Right now, the heat of the construction is Granite Basin, I'm sorry, Achilles diversion, and they're trying to get a good design on this left abutment. So it depends upon what you call left and what you call right. So you got to declare your conventions. So I like to look upstream and declare left and right. Some people like to look downstream and declare left and right. So let's just get it right. So if I'm looking downstream, it's going to be the right-hand side. So they think that that's incompetent rock, and so as a result, they're designing a 40-foot extension onto that to tie it into competent rock. And that design is not fully developed yet, so that's what they're spending their time on. Some of the other items here that I've asked them to stop, there's handrails, the temporary bridge, they didn't like the guardrails on it, so I've asked them to stop that. I've asked them to concentrate just on the essential stuff, just on critical path stuff. And the handrails, I think that KPU can handle that once we take over. So I really think that our group can weld up some handrails that are 48 inches tall and can take 200 pounds of force, which is the federal requirement. And I talked to the FERC guy on that issue, and I told him I know that handrails are important on a FERC project, but these may be delayed because I don't think that they're necessarily required to be designed by Hatch. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. The other one is the Achilles diversion. Is that a dam that's going to have some water behind it?
Yes. It'll have some impoundment, but not much.
And how high is this going to be?
At the deepest point, it'll be 23 feet.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Andy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Carl, you said you had a second item?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to offer condolences to Councilmember Olson as to how events unfolded.
It's horrible.
All halves.
Could be worse. He could have been rooting for San Jose.
Yeah. I know, I was going,
Yeah.
what happened?
All right.
It felt like that last time.
City clerk's file,
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
city attorney's file, future agenda items. Yeah.
The sourdough and the 49er both went smoke-free today, and I've been approached by some people who are wondering if we would want to once again discuss having smoke-free bars and restaurants. I said I would bring it up. So maybe we could talk about that at the next meeting, see if there's any interest.
You bet.
Yeah. I think we should tour them.
I could start this evening.
Oh, we're gonna need some some city money to do that.
Yeah, oh, heck yeah.
Mayor and council comments. KJ. Bob.
Nope.
Marty.
Yeah, just briefly, the medical center has got a doctor who's now coming up for an oncology clinic, and she wanted to give a public presentation on cancer screening, and I couldn't figure out where to put it. The library was already being used, and so I got in touch with the museum, and they found a wonderful place. It was a great space for us to have the presentation, and the museum staff couldn't have been better or more helpful. It worked great, and I just really appreciated that. That's all.
Just so she doesn't need the guinea pig. Matt.
Thank you. This was meant to be a question of the manager.
Go ahead.
Where do we stand with the proposal for SEPA to purchase with me?
It's in your court, and I would defer to Councilmember Severson or you, Your Honor.
Bob, do you know I haven't heard anything lately.
Presently, our first option, of course, is to move forward with the Swan raise, and depending on bonding capacities and financing, because the state has backed off tremendously on that, we'll continue to look at that as we move forward. I don't think there's anything in the immediate queue for that, but
Well, there were some guidelines as to when they would answer back to the proposals that were pushed out there. So.
Oh, you're talking about the RFOs. The RFOs don't close until September of this year on options 1, 2, and 3, and I think 4 goes out quite another 6 to 8 months or something like that.
I can find out.
Yeah, but I think that it doesn't close until September.
Because we're looking at more power, not more storage capacity with those, correct?
Whitman would be an added generation, and then the Swan is going to be added storage.
Deanne?
Nothing.
Dick?
Nope.
All right, I have nothing either. Enjoy the sun. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Carl, can I talk to you before you run off?
Yeah.